in March done, but it's okay. I'm happy that I at least got this one done. Maybe I'll be able to get another one started before the weekend is over, since my mom will have some kids. I'm a mother of 3 too, by the way. I don't know if I ever mentioned that.
Well, your work is so detailed. I can't imagine that they're speedy to get it done.
I do kind of work pretty fluidly through it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I try to, get as much done. It's really a matter of making certain decisions that can lead to, a quicker outcome, still successful, but just quicker, layering and all of that jazz. So
nice.
Cool. Whenever you're ready, Dr.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Darden Bradshaw. It's nice to have you all here. I am a faculty member at the University of Dayton in the Department of Art and Design. I actually run the art education program. And I'm really excited that we have our speaker today. So this is what's called our Practices and Perspectives in Art Education series. It is a vocational series designed to support particularly pre-service art educators and others who are interested in exploring ways to build strategies and tools that support a life of purpose and meaning as both an artist, teacher, and human. We have anywhere from 5 to 7 different guest speakers throughout the course of the academic semester. And I'm very thrilled and excited to be able to welcome Erin Smith-Glenn, who's going to be sharing her experience, her work, and her process today with us. We have students who will be popping in. We recognize that sometimes at a university setting, class ends and you have there's a little bit of an overlap. So Erin, please be aware that we might see people popping in. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to record this session. That way, those individuals who couldn't participate and be here with us can still hear you and see you in your amazing work. So let me begin by introducing Erin. Erin is a professor at Central State. She's been there for 11 years. She teaches drawing, particularly drawing, right?
And drawing and painting.
Drawing and painting. And I had the opportunity to first be introduced to Erin's work through K-12 Gallery. When I was there, excuse me, they were doing an auction event one evening, and I got to watch Erin in process working, and I was fascinated by her work. And I began, as Jennifer said earlier, sort of stalking her, watching her on Instagram, following her, trying to pay attention to where her work was so I could go see it all around the Dayton area. And so I thought, when I was putting this series together, I thought, of all people, I really want Erin to be here. And it couldn't be any more serendipitous that we are having you with us during March, during Women's History Month, right? It feels like it's perfect timing. So thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to stop talking and turn the floor over to you.
Thank you guys so much for being here and for allowing me to take up your time. I'm going to kind of turn my jazz down just a little bit for now, at least. And so also, with it being Women's Month, this is like one of my favorite months, if not my favorite. It's also my birthday month, like a little bonus month for me. Women's Month, birthday month. And so with that said, I also realized, wow, this is the birthday month of a lot of people that I know. And even some people maybe I don't know, but know them through just kind of their sacrifice, like Miss Breonna Taylor. Her birthday actually was this past Saturday, March 13th. And I believe she would have been 27 years old. And, I feel like hopefully out of this tragedy can just be born awareness and, kind of times shifting into a more just kind of direction of people watching what they say, but first watching what they think and, being careful what they allow themselves to believe. There's just been a lot of people just, all the time believing things based on just kind of a shallow perspective to begin with. And so I'm happy to be able to continue what I call kind of a tribute series. And I'll kind of go into the presentation of that. I do have just a presentation to share with you. I know you guys are all tired of presentations by now. I will try to make this one interesting. You guys are like, no, I'll take one more.
That's right. We're ready.
I'm going to stop my video now. And actually the image you see there is going to be in the presentation. It's a backdrop. And it's almost a year old now. So I'll go ahead and move this little bar thing out the way and begin. And so I was talking to Dr. Bradshaw because I was trying to think, it's going to be March. And, you know, of course, March is Women's Month. And I just love honoring women and just people of color and just people who have, all kinds of people that have made significant, selfless sacrifices, whether they meant to or not, but especially those who intentionally have done so, you know, just throughout time. And so I kind of started this journey of heritage while I was in graduate school at the University of Cincinnati. You know, when I matriculated through my undergraduate program, also at Central State University, when I did graduate, I felt really prepared for the next level, whatever that might have been. And so I then went to University of Cincinnati to study my Master's of Fine Arts with still a concentration in studio, but not really sure exactly what I wanted to concentrate on in my work. It really took me about a year to realize that the idea of a cultural journey and understanding of hair would be a really good way for me to just kind of focus on. You said you can't see the slideshow. Can you see it now?
No, you're showing only the PowerPoint screen. I think maybe it's one of those situations where the presentation, are you actually going through the slides?
I know what you mean.
Okay.
I think I know exactly what you mean.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
The presentation itself is not showing clearly?
It was just the PowerPoint screen. There it is. That's the official.
Working now?
And Erin, if you turn your video back on, we'll see you as you speak next to your screen share.
True. That is very true.
There we go. Yes.
Awesome.
So thank you for that. That might be helpful. And so heritage was kind of like a little happy accident. I was like just thinking about heritage and, you know, an actual cultural journey and ancestral journey of sorts. And hair definitely reflects that. It kind of just worked together one day, just haphazardly. And it's kind of stuck with me all these years. And I've seen other people kind of since come up with their own versions of it, their own historical tributes, but not really in this way. You know, I was raised in a hair salon in Columbus. My mom did nails and my cousin did hair, and I loved the atmosphere because it's not just, you know, a hair salon. When you walk into a salon where you're talking about Black hair being serviced, and there's, you know, just a lot of the cultural norms. You know, there's the music, there's the smell of the chemicals, there's the conversation, the dialogue, the community aspect of it. And then I started thinking about all the reasons why we spend so much time in these places. These places are like sanctuaries within the Black community. And so they've literally been safe havens throughout history, throughout places like the Civil Rights Movement, where, you know, many of those meetings took place in hair salons, and even before in hair salons and barbershops, in churches as well. But also many times people don't talk enough about the Civil Rights Movement and the relationship between that and just hair, and how that all kind of ties in. But I think a lot of people are not aware of just the very historical aspect of hair anyway, and why it is in a way a form of communication. And so let me go to the next one. So I decided I would show you guys a few of my early influences, including Lorna Simpson, who, if you see her work featured on the right, she was like one of the first artists to display hair as if it was traditional fine art in a gallery or museum setting. And she is responsible for so many different kinds of media in her work. I was very influenced by Kehinde Wiley, and just his very kind of regal way of displaying everyday citizens of Black community in a way that just made them just very royal and set apart. And, you know, I find it really interesting. We often use terms like king and queen in the Black community as it relates more to the historical standpoint of it. You know, before our ancestors were slaves, they were kings and queens, and so we often use that term in that relationship. And I feel like his work very much represents that. And then, of course, a guy you guys probably recognize very much so, Mr. Willis Bing Davis, and just his whole paying tribute to ancestry and honor and respect and just tributing. His work just echoes that over and over and over again. And I'm just so humbled to know him and to call him a friend of mine. The triangles, I kind of was influenced in some of my work by his as well, by his work, but in a kind of a different way. And I'll repeat what that means like throughout the presentation. But I began looking at different books to start to kind of track the journey of hair in Africa. And I immediately came across a book by Angela Fisher called Africa Adorned. And all these images I started seeing that kind of reminded me of modern day hairstyles like mohawks and buns, and, you know, still seeing braids, even, you know, similarities with how intricately detailed even today we tend to braid our hair. And, you know, in the African-American community, if you're walking down the street, if you're driving, if you're going anywhere, pretty much you'll see, you know, this very kind of historically rich version of what you're seeing in many of these images. You know, kind of going back to origins though, you know, just how resourceful people are. People just by nature, humans by nature, are very resourceful with whatever it is they have around them. And traditionally, Africans would use whatever was in their environment and adorn their hair. And sometimes it was for adornment, for ceremony. Sometimes it was for health of the hair, protection of the hair. Certain hairstyles reflected certain stages in one's life. I found that to be extremely interesting because we also tend to do that very much in African American communities. You know, younger children, especially girls, might have more barrettes and things of that nature. And then as they age, they, you know, kind of want to branch out into a more mature, more serious hairstyle that people might take them more seriously. And it's more of a matter of respect, you know, and kind of just an understanding. You know, I find this to be just so whimsical and just magical, just all these different interpretations of just Black hair anyway, the texture, the porosity of it, how it's wonderfully unusual in the fact that it often defies gravity, you know, and, you know, can move and be shaped and formed into so many different ways. Even elongation of skull and other parts of the body as additional forms of beauty, I began to really learn and research about. This is me as a student in my studio working on a couple of pieces there that were literally the very beginning pieces of the heritage and this tribute series. And you can see like little clippings in the background. And even my own hair, which I did myself, is extremely detailed, just like my work tends to be. And that's reflected also, they just kind of bounce back and forth, you know, the hair. And I do have like a hair license. I don't use it anymore. But, you know, I like to kind of dabble in it myself. I have a broad understanding and just fascination with it. And just like how I love to feel art supplies and paper and things like that, I love the feel and the texture of hair. I love to portray texture in my work, as well as in life. And so I've worn pretty much any hairstyle. I've even taken and done paintings where I manipulated the canvas to mimic hair. Textures was a very early piece that I did, where it was actually inside of a canvas for a while, and it just never felt complete to me for a few years until I decided to cut it out and started actually ripping the hair and braiding the hair and curling it as if it were hair. And even some parts of it is damaged, as hair tends to be sometimes when it's overly done and things of that nature. And so these are, again, some just early pieces. And influential images here. These two images, this one here of the Mangbitu tribe, where they wrap the skull and elongate it as a, not just a form of beauty, but also a kind of a belief of the more elongated the skull is, the more knowledge can come to that individual. You know, sometimes things of that nature, you know, a lot of people are so quick to call things like this taboo, but you know, they forget to understand that there's a purpose for everything like this, you know. The woman on the right, I was so fascinated when I saw this woman with this fan-shaped style. I learned that she was a chief among, like a wife among wives, but the favored wife of this chief of her tribe. And the reason why that was able to be known and recognized among the tribe is because she had the more elaborate hairstyle among the wives. It set her apart. It was a like a form of distinction and recognition, importance. And I decided to take that community aspect and kind of combined it. I had a couple of friends that were so gracious to model for me in this piece that I created while I was in graduate school. I actually still have that piece. This is another one where I began to experiment with the triangular shapes in the background. I was really beginning to do that while doing this series paying tribute to Coretta Scott King, who is wearing actually a hairstyle that is revered as a style in a certain tribe. It slips my mind. I have to get back to you guys. But it is a hairstyle that's more commonly worn among the older women of the tribe, or the women who are the more revered women of the tribe. And I've always thought of Coretta Scott King in that way. And the hairstyle, ironically, is called Queen Mother. So I just combined the two to make the title Queen King. And so this was like my first exploration of the myriad of shapes in the background. And I kept exploring that. Here, Fulani, this tribe that has these very interesting hairstyles, I was so fascinated, and this is kind of where I started, you know, not necessarily moving away from hair, but trying to combine people that I really admire and have admired throughout my life. And Lauryn Hill, I admired throughout so many reasons. And then whenever I kind of attach a known person or just a person to this series, and especially if hair is involved and the historical hair aspect is involved, then I'll title it The Heritage of So-and-so. In this case, The Heritage of Lauryn Hill. She's such an elaborate artist, just one of like immaculate measure. And I saw this hairstyle as being a great representation. It's very extreme. It's unusual. You know, like Miss Hill tends to be wonderfully unusual though, like amazingly like unusual. And I love how the hairstyle is transparent in some areas. So when I laid down the background, I made sure you could still see some of that through the hair, so you could see that that's actually how the hair reacts. Like if you saw someone walking around with this particular hairstyle, you know, you would be able to actually see some transparency through the hair and the way that it's designed. But I did keep some aspects of it that were from the original image that she took, just things that she already was adorned with, and combining it with this additional one. This is colored pencil, by the way. I actually won an award for this in early 2020 at the Actors Theater in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I was really happy to do so. This was kind of like the beginning of the transition where I really began really paying tribute to people more so than hair. So this is another one I did using the stippling method. And when I think of, you know, the stippling method is very time consuming, but when you get into it, at least for me personally, then it becomes relaxing and calming, you know, sort of like listening to a song, you know, easy listening. And when I think of the prodigy known as Esperanza Spalding, and you guys should check her out when you get a chance. When I think about her, I think about the investment of time that she's put into her craft, you know, in developing herself up. And so I decided that the style of stippling would correlate with just her and her as a person and her investment of time. The stippling is an investment of time, but then it's worth it in the end. And it starts to kind of feel good and you get into the groove of it, like music. I love musical artists. I love music. This was actually a tribute for Women's Month that I did, was it three years back, of Janelle Monáe. During that year, she was doing some wonderfully outrageous things. And I was like on the front row just watching it all happen. And I just really respected her for her boldness. And so this image was, let's see, excuse me. I noticed there was like a little chat. Oh, thank you. This image was actually taken of her when she was on the red carpet for the Black Panther film. And the only thing that was different is I added a lot more blue. Like her hair wasn't blue. Her eyes weren't actually blue, but I wanted to include that royal blue that I saw in her jewelry and her crown. And I wanted to just kind of like, just drip all through her, if you will. And then I decided, I don't have a whole lot of male representation. So that's when Miles Davis came into play. The Asante tribe, they do these really interesting crowns where, they carve animals into it. And I decided to, mimic that same ideal and draw the animals into it and kind of attach the color emphasis from the crown into the trumpet for Miles Davis. Zebras are traditionally known as their representations of creativity in African culture. They represent creativity, uniqueness, wildness. And I thought of Miles Davis, I was paying tribute to Miles Davis. Then I thought, what would be a good representation from the animal kingdom to represent him? And then I learned of the zebra and the actual meaning behind it. And I thought that's perfect. Just creative and unique, but kind of wild, kind of temperamental, as Miles Davis was known to be. But definitely much respect for him. And so more present day, what I was kind of in the process of, and things have shifted just kind of due to COVID and how I responded to the global pandemic of the day and things of that nature. But I was working on the heritage of the do-rag. And I thought it was interesting that one of the very first images of a person documented in a do-rag was none other than the late, great Harriet Tubman. Oh, one of my favorite people. I just love her to pieces. The fact that the leader of the Underground Railroad was a woman, it's just, her birthday was this month as well. It's March 10th. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? And so, one day when I decided to do this do-rag series, a student walked in with a do-rag on, and I was just like, yay, this is my opportunity to ask him if he'll allow me to photograph him. And he did. And so these are actually drawings that I did on black paper. I've been doing a lot of black tone paper drawings, just using, in this case, white colored pencil on top. And so I started a series that's been just a little stagnant as I kind of, not really by my own choosing, but by the choosing of the social environment shifted, because this was like the end of 2019 leading into 2020. Need I say more? And so since the social and global pandemic, this was actually the first piece that I created under the pandemic. That day was like a little over a year and maybe 5 days ago that I found out in one day that I would not only be teaching from home for the duration of the spring, but that I would also have to homeschool all three of my children. I was a round-the-clock 24/7 teacher. It was insane. And how did I respond? Like any other sane artist would. While everyone else was running and stocking up on toilet paper, I ran to the art store and stocked up on art supplies. It was wonderful, because while everybody was at the grocery store, I was just at home like, okay, cool, great. How do I start this? See, I'm a mom. I was already stocked up on all those things anyway. So Lysol and all that. So this was my way of responding. I was so stressed out, you guys. I was so stressed out. And the only thing I could think of was just kind of beginning to process my emotions through my art. That's how I communicate the most. And I remember I was still kind of in the midst of this heritage of the do-rag series when I came across an image of Solange Knowles at the Met Gala wearing a do-rag. Oh man, it was the best. And I already have so much respect for her anyway. I love Beyonce, but I'm a Solange fan. They're both artists, but Solange is like, I don't know. I don't think enough people understand how creatively brilliant she is. She's been an award-winning writer since she was a teenager. She's phenomenal. But she's also bold, like just ridiculously bold. And the fact that she wore a do-rag with a halo around it. And so it was my way of kind of retreating to my studio. And I think I made this within the first 3 days of discovering that I would be at home doing all of this work. And it was like I immediately felt so much better though. Oh, and then this. So my birthday also was under the pandemic. Boy, all March babies were pissed last year, you guys. We were just like, what are we going to do? How can we celebrate life under lockdown? And honestly, as it turned out, I had a fantastic birthday. I ended up deciding to, once again, retreat to my studio space that I'm currently in now. That's changed a lot, by the way. And I created this piece on my birthday in 2020, March 31st. And the title of it ended up being, I Am My Sister's Keeper. I was inspired by a piece that I saw earlier in 2020 that was called, it was like, I am my brother's keeper, protect him at all costs. I saw it, I think the lady's name is Tasha Blackwell. She was an artist that was featured in the same show that I was in Kentucky last year. And I thought the whole title, I was inspired actually by this person that I've never met, but I got to see her artwork and I was inspired by her and her work. And we chatted a little bit online, but this ended up being kind of one of the results of what I did under quarantine, as well as this piece, which kind of fast forward through several pieces I ended up creating under quarantine. I ended up deciding that it was best for myself and just everyone that I knew that if I just kept producing work, it might encourage people to produce their work and to maybe gain healing and perspective of this whole thing through their work, through output of work, through working through exhaustion, working through frustration, working through depression, working through it, just pressing and working through it. And this really helped me, do that. And I was kind of here paying tribute to so many things. There was the Zulu knots, the Bantu knots, which are very traditionally royal hairstyle. Everybody likes to wear them, nowadays. A lot of people don't realize that it has a very African-based tradition. Traditionally, also was a wedding style, but just worn by people of affluence and influence with these South African colors in the background. And of course, the triangles. And I also learned that the triangle upside down, I learned that years ago as I was researching, but that the upside down triangle is the chalice, and it's a very ancient symbol of feminism, and not just feminism, but powerful feminism, the powerful female. So whenever you see a triangle pointed upside down, it represents also the womb in a way, a woman's womb, just kind of the strength and the power associated with that. So I almost always have triangles in the background. This is not only a piece that I did under quarantine, but also a piece that I did as I was at home teaching painting. This was a demonstration for a painting class that I was teaching in early 2020. And I thought it might be good in the fact that it'll be more than just me demonstrating a painting, but maybe it'll kind of give some encouragement, strength, and power to the student body, building the morale in a way of the students. Also created during Women's Month, based on Black Panther. I was commissioned to do quite a few works as well, which was quite a blessing. I've been very fortunate throughout this entire time. This lady who I never met reached out to me through Etsy, because I have an Etsy website as well. And she commissioned me to do 5 studies of these 5 women who you guys hopefully recognize. But in order, they are Michelle Obama, Zora Neale Hurston, Oprah Winfrey, and Terry and McMillan and Assata Shakur. And these weren't people that I chose, but I was allowed to kind of select the images. And she didn't know I was going to do the triangles in the background. but I just thought this would be the perfect opportunity, you know, to kind of continue this series. Black and Gold, I felt, was just a very royal way to do it. Even got a chance to do some Father's Day pieces and chalk pastel. These were done in colored pencil, by the way. This is a acrylic paint. Forgot to mention that. I like to flow through media, and this is a colored pencil and chalk pastel, which I love and which I'll continue with today. I feel like I'm towards the end of this. Yes, this was kind of how I ended my summer. I was grieving at the time. I had lost my dog the same weekend that Chadwick Boseman passed away. And so this was also kind of like a healing tribute for myself, as well as everyone else that just really took this as a huge blow. I did personally. It was like a double blow at this time. And so I decided to give it, it actually has two different titles. Originally it was called I Am Ready, which is based on a quote that he actually said in the Black Panther film. And that can mean so many things, you know, I am ready, but also I thought, you know, a king falls and then ascends would also be a good additional subtitle, you know, for whatever reason. And so I guess kind of going, now I'm at the tail end of it. I just kind of wanted to let you all know exactly where my current works are as well. I've been exhibiting with the Grace United Methodist Church. It's a big, humongous, historical landmark of a church in downtown Dayton. And they have this actually wonderful gallery of rotating artists. And Miss Rhea Smith, she invited me to participate with some other local Black artists during the month of February, and then headed into March with Women's History Month. So I kind of got like a nice double dose because I get to, you know, hold both of those titles. So from Black History Month to Women's History Month. And so this was the flyer for the Black History Month show. And my pieces are there in the top left and the bottom right, I believe. Yes. And as well, you remember the Esperanza Spalding piece. And so this is currently up. And then the information is there at the bottom with the phone number and with the email, and as well as their website, if you want to make an appointment to actually see the exhibit. I figured I'd let you guys know that. And so that brings me to the end of it. And I'm sorry that took so long. But I wanted to, you know, I teach history as well. And so I love history. Like, I just like to soak it up. And, you know, whenever I have a question about something, I would like to go all the way as far back to the beginning as I can find, you know, with things. And so I figured it would be fair to, you know, continue on from here after you guys kind of knew a backstory of it. So are there any questions?
I'm sure we have some questions, but I want to just say, I don't think you need to apologize. That was incredible. That's exactly what we invited you to do, is share that gorgeous work.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a lot of fun.
So inspiring.
It wasn't always fun while creating. Sometimes it was frustrating. Sometimes I had to step away. Some things got put away for a while and then I came back to it, you know, but overall it's been a progressive process. So.
Yeah, I was gonna ask kind of like your thoughts about like appropriation and like how to celebrate these like histories and not appropriating it, like, and maybe if you could, like, maybe from an educational perspective.
Mm-hmm. So a way to kind of like not feel like you're exploiting it in a way, is that
Yes.
what you mean?
Yes.
I think that's a good way to look at it, because I've been thinking about that as I pay tribute, because I'm kind of shifting to more of the BLM kind of like a subcategory of the series, focusing on BLM. And I'm like, how do I celebrate something so tragic? Or, you know, how do I do that? And so with this particular piece, I did a little bit of history on Breonna Taylor. And, you know, I decided that adding things that kind of attributed to her life and her, you know, just kind of her. So, you know, things that kind of made up who she was, I thought might be a sensitive way to approach it, rather than just drawing an image. You know, the roses are there because, you know, with her being, I believe it was from Florida, and with that being the state flower, I thought, well, that might be interesting. And, you know, I thought just kind of adding the pearl necklace, every image that I ever saw of her, she just seemed like such a lighthearted individual, just kind of just very like airy almost in her images, and the way people talk about her. And then I, just um, was, looking at pictures of her and her mom together versus, pictures of her mom now, and God love her and all. But I was looking at just pictures of her with her friends and loved ones, and she just seemed like a delightful person. And I figured, well, that's the way that I want to portray her, is kind of in the light of the remembrance of her and not necessarily the remembrance of how she died, in a way. And so I would like to do a series of these, build up enough of these together so that they can be on display. I'm not necessarily interested in throwing this on my website and selling it. I'm not interested. I want to make it a kind of a series of awareness, and if eventually they can get shown together, then I think it'll serve a sensitive purpose. That's really what my ultimate goal is, to just really just exhibit them in one space together. Yeah.
Erin, you talked a little bit about at the beginning of the pandemic, as you were sort of, as many people, thrown into this relationship of the conflation of your work life, your home life, your children's education, and that for you, your work became a place for you to connect and find solace. Can you talk a little bit about that experience for you? Because I think that one of the challenges that is often relayed to me from future art teachers is that they have this perception that they're going to go to work and they're going to do their job and they're going to come home, and that the two worlds don't necessarily collide. Even before the pandemic, I would say for many of us, those worlds collided in many different ways, but as teachers particularly, they collide and they interrupt one another. And so for future art educators to think about, what does it mean to find and make space for myself as an artist and for my artistic voice, even in the midst of all of that chaos and challenge?
It means scheduling time for it. It means doing what I tell everybody I know. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a planner. I will plan out time, even if if I can get it is a 30-minute per day time slot. And I will make announcements to my children who understands that no fun can continue in your life if I cannot get my work done, because I cannot service you as an effective mother, friend, daughter, whoever I am to a person, if I am not producing. Like I have a responsibility to myself and everyone else to do this. And so anyone who knows me knows that me having space to work is an absolute non-negotiable thing. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't sacrifice too much of my creative time. And maybe I'm not working as much on my own work as I would like to at this moment, teaching full time, but I am still getting it done, and maybe a little slower, but still inching towards it. And so, like I said, it means carving out time. It means having people in your life that respect that time. That's really all it means. Like, are you respecting yourself enough to carve out time to do that? Like planning it out, writing it down, posting it up so that you see it. And then are other people holding you accountable as well? Find people to hold you accountable. Don't just say to yourself, I'm going to draw today. Nope, tell someone else, you know what, I plan to draw today. And so that person can say, hey, did you draw today? Did you get that in? Did you do that? Why didn't you do it? You said you were going to do it. Find that person that will nag you to death about it. I promise you'll get it done.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yay. Hi, Ryan. You had a question?
Hi. Yeah. Well, first of all, what you just said really resonates with me.
Okay.
I'm going to look for more accountability, I think.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask is, most of the work that you showed us today is very monochromatic, which to me really highlighted the emotional expression and sort of it was more about the facial expression came through in a way in the monochromatic work. Can you talk a little bit about why you choose that direction? Is that a conscious choice to go full color versus a monochromatic portraiture?
Yeah, sometimes, especially with the black paper, I really like to just kind of focus on the depth of the black tone, the gray tone. I think I've been moving more into adding a more colorful palette in my work, like with the Lauryn Hill piece, and kind of leading into this one as well. So the pieces that I plan on doing for these are all going to be in full color. And starting with kind of like a toned background. There was an image of Breonna Taylor that I used, and it was very pink and bright and kind of fuchsia oriented. And I thought it would be a nice way to kind of move into the piece with that tone of background. I really want to do a Trayvon Martin one so bad, because that's really where the Black Lives Matter movement really took its precedence, was after the death of Trayvon Martin. And honestly, I found out about that not through the news, but through my students. Actually, they immediately responded to it. Yeah, I kind of want to move more to, I guess, the addition of color, but I don't always do that on the black tone paper, because I do want to keep that depth that's in that black tone paper. It does have that kind of historical attribute and piece to it. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank
I love the idea of adding color, and what you're doing with the Breonna Taylor portrait is really bringing out some joy in a very somber situation, which I think is something we don't see enough of, to really humanize.
That's what I'm hoping for. Like, I don't want to, like, I was wondering, like, am I glorifying this too much by making it so bright and colorful? But I'm like, but she seemed like such a bright and airy and bubbly and just fun, life-loving type of person. And so I didn't want to show it somber for that reason, because again, as I was saying, I wanted her life to be seen through this and not her death.
Yes.
You know, even though we know her through how she died, I think that shouldn't be the only reason why we know her, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you saying like humanizing it, I think that's perfect explanation of it, you know. I think so many times, at least from my perspectives of like seeing it on the news and whatnot, it feels like it's just another statistic, or it's just another news report. I think showing like the joy is humanizing. Like, this wasn't just another statistic. This was a person who had their own life. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're doing it right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope so. Did you guys want to see me add a few things and details to it, I guess?
Indeed, we do.
Yeah, I got about like 15 minutes or so. I think I can make something happen. Maybe I was like working on adding roses around her hair. So maybe I'll like continue laying down some more of the hair first, so that I can add the flowers on top. Okay.
What
So
medium is this color chalk pastels that you're working with?
These are chalk pastels that I'm working with.
Okay, thank you.
Yay, lots of colorful chalk pastels. So I think hold on one second. Let me get out of this real quick. Here we go. Let's turn on a teeny bit of jazz. I do that a lot in class, actually. I do play music in class. And so I'm gonna try to kind of bring this a little closer. So I like to often kind of change the hair, but honestly, in the image that I was referencing, her hair was kind of taking on these nice kind of violet and red violet tones. And so I figured that's how I'll just continue with it in that way. And if you guys want to ask questions like while I'm working, that does not bother me at all.
What kind of chalk pastels are you using?
These are Faber-Castell, although I actually started it with a different brand, but sorry, I want to turn this down so I don't feel like I'm yelling over you guys. I usually use Prismacolor. But I also just kind of like exploring other I like Faber-Castell. I'm more familiar with their charcoals. And kind of like their pencils and things of that nature, but they actually make these sticks and they're like already the perfect size, because actually when I open a box of Prismacolors, I break them. I break the sticks because they come like 3 times this length, and I don't really like holding it in that way that long. So I already had like a few little flowers kind of etched out on the side.
It's amazing how just laying in that violet, the side of her cheek is just popping forward now with the contrast.
That's what I was hoping for. I love contrast. I love it. I love texture. Value, I feel like, is one of those elements that covers so many things. Like through value, you can create form. Through a value, you can create texture. Things can either appear shiny and smooth or rough and jagged just through the addition of value. Yeah, but her hair was actually kind of dark in the image, and so.
Are you using a visual reference?
I am.
Okay.
Yep. Not from the computer. I had to. So through teaching at home, I learned ways to be able to do live demonstrations while looking at images, because it was kind of rough sometimes,
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm more of a fan of working from an image so that I can capture the true essence of it,
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not exact, just kind of capturing the essence of that. So.
Sure.
And then here there were like a few green flowers and things that was adding. Let's see.
When you work off of an image, do you do like a pencil trace, or do you just start off with a background color and go with it?
Yep. Are you talking about like the actual drawing?
Yeah.
So with the actual drawing, yeah, I started just by staining the background with a pink pastel and smoothing it out. And then I took, I believe it was like this tone here, and began sketching it out just using basic shapes. And I don't know if you saw like the little video that I think Professor Darden sent around, but I showed like little progressive images in it. And so like images of me working from like a blank sheet all the way up until now. And you could see like the basic shapes kind of gradually transforming into more. I thought that was me for a second. No worries. I'm surprised it wasn't me. I'm surprised it was not me that time. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go back and begin to lay down more tones in the hair in certain areas. It's funny because even with these little pieces, they still seem kind of like large for me. I like to like really use small pieces when I'm doing chalk pastel. A lot of people like to use the nice fine tips. I don't like really using that. I like to use the flat ridge of it. Kind of get the shapes in there more. Anyone else like a fan of pastel? I really love it. You know what? I got acquainted with it as an upperclassman in undergrad. I think I was a senior actually, like a junior or senior, when I first became like acquainted with chalk pastel. I was working with a variety of other media that was kind of like taking up my attention. But then I was like, I love pastel. It's like paint and dry media at the same time. Gotta love that.
Do you put any kind of like workable fixative on it between sessions when you're working?
That's a great question. I really don't. I feel like sometimes the fixative kind of dulls down colors a bit, Sometimes, actually, I'll just like put just a sheet of paper over it just actual paper, put paper on it.
So I love
if-
how, sorry, I
Sorry.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I was saying that like if I have to travel with it, I'll just, cover it and then put it in a portfolio.
I was going to say, I really appreciate how you talked about working on not from like a white surface, that you were drawing on black paper, or in this case, you laid down pink to create a ground.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship of starting with color on the surface and how that shifts for you, the process of drawing?
So as I'm moving from one portrait to another, just like
Yes.
what do I choose the colors I choose?
Yes.
So sometimes I'll choose based on, if I'm doing a portrait especially, I'll choose based on a person's undertones in their skin. Sometimes I'll even choose laying down tones based on something even stranger than that. Like if they're wearing red, I might start with red and then add and like actually stain the background red, and then kind of add their features on top of that red, kind of like complementing sometimes what they're wearing, and not just kind of like their actual skin tone, but somehow still making that work as well. I'm going to kind of leave the background of this alone for a while because I have some other ideas that I'm going to do later. But
and that's another question I have. So I noticed recently as I was working on a piece that it's changing as I've been working on it. Obviously, what I initially intended and some of the choices I make along the way. Do you do that with a lot of your work? Do you make changes as you move along, or do you start with an idea fully formed in your head and a vision and then achieve that?
Sometimes I will actually just kind of work with that vision in my head, like throughout the whole piece, but sometimes things will change way in the end, and they'll change dramatically. Like I might just cut out certain parts out of the drawing and paste it onto a whole other drawing, or like I did with the early heritage piece where it was in a canvas stretcher for like years, and then I decided I don't really like it in this canvas stretcher anymore. I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to like kind of manipulate the actual canvas itself, So I think my more dramatic changes happen kind of like in the end, like when it's done, like something that's kind of like an irreversible type of, thing there. I really am trying to decide on what color I want this rose to be. I think I'll make it purple. So, and with detailed things like flowers and jewelry and things of that nature, definitely starting with the tone surface is a huge factor for me. I like to usually start with something dark, like even really darker than this, the darkest value that's in the actual subject matter, and then work my way up to the surface lights. So like, for example, with this particular flower down here.
Do you, in thinking about working back up to the surface lights, do you use like a kneaded eraser and subtract out anything?
Not really. I just like to work, and that's the beauty of pastel that I like. I usually don't even use my finger. I usually use like a paper towel or whatever. But the beauty of pastel is that you can do a lot of that layering. Like in this area here, I'm getting ready to add, a lot of the texture that you kind of see within the rose using the darker tone, but then I'm going to bring in more of the three-dimensional, like the area that's actually coming and popping out, that's going to get added on top of that and around that. So like this isn't really that light, but I need to add it anyway as I'm working up to the lights. Then it's going to really get kind of dramatically lighter in other areas in order to allow the petals to come forward. I'm going to use this light tool here. And so let's see, this is a good area to start. The way this one is kind of curving around is for the same reason that I like to draw jewelry, that kind of three-dimensional aspect that occurs when you add that light on top. I want to kind of go back to Jennifer asked a question about how do you, cultural appropriation. I think that is so interesting because that kind of brings me to a subject I guess I'll just mention because I think it's important for people to know. When everything was going down with George Floyd back in May and that June, a lot of people were just responding through art, but in ways that, they were trying to like exhibit and, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you and this and that and the other. And someone actually reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm getting ready to exhibit work for Black Lives Matter exhibit, and I have to actually submit a written statement. And I was wondering if you could help me with the written statement. And, I thought this is, if Black Lives Matter really mattered to you, I think we would have had this conversation long before the writing of the statement, if it really did matter. But to just kind of reach out to me simply because you need help with explaining why Black Lives Matters to you, I can't help you with that, So I think that was a really good, an important question to ask, because some things we just kind of go about our lives doing and saying, we don't realize that it offends people, even if, we don't always mean to, offend people. But sometimes I guess just the nature of the society that we live in and just kind of the foundation of this country being set on so many, just kind of false pretenses, lies, whatever you want to call it, because of the history of our nation, we have to kind of go back and say, hey, I know this has been kind of an unfortunately normal thing for a while, but it's got to stop now,
Yes.
it's offensive, whatever that may be. And so I think just asking like, what is offensive? I don't think it makes anyone ignorant so much as it makes them want to just be kind at their core. They really genuinely want to know, so they don't offend anyone or whatever. So anyway, I hope that flower is beginning to make sense to you guys.
It literally within seconds looked like one of my 30-second drawings to like, boom, that's a flower. Real quick.
But it's really just as simple as just adding in those, those dark areas first. I kind of want to do it again, but over here I want to use more of a teal.
Also, thank you for addressing that question a little deeper. I think like as an art educator, like a future art educator, I think a lot of times, like maybe this is just me, maybe this is a lot of people in the program, but I think I worry about like, when teaching African American history and art and things like that, it's definitely a concern of mine that I would maybe cross boundaries without knowing it. So thank you.
I think as long as you kind of portray truth and, run things by colleagues and friends, of all different kinds, like you seem like the kind of person that's just well-rounded regarding people that you know and associate with anyway. I would just say keep doing what you're doing, Jennifer. And also I want to know just kind of what grades are you interested in teaching? Just because I'm nosy and curious.
No worries. I have a preference for high school, but wherever I end up is where I end up. So that's no strong interest in anything.
Okay. Well, it's okay to have an interest and a preference and things of that nature. I think
that's very true. And
yeah,
Jennifer, in the spring, you'll be working with middle schoolers, and you never know, you might fall in love.
I'm not gonna lie, with our class last semester, before I started at UD, I was in ground that I wanted to be high school. So, and then last semester I took the K through 5 and I liked that a lot. I'm not gonna lie. So
oh yeah.
I've always liked the middle school age.
You know what? Stop reading my mind, okay? I was just about to say that. I got a middle schooler right now. God help me.
I just think that they have some of the most creative thinking, and they're sort of right on the cusp of being defiant, but still being somewhat
innocent,
respectful. So they they take in what you say, and then they have this amazing way of returning it to you from a new point of view.
Nice way of putting it.
Brian,
clever.
I was a middle school teacher, art teacher. And so for me, I really do, as you said, Brian,
Yeah.
I have an affinity for them, for middle schoolers, because they are so transparent and genuine
Yeah,
in ways that they haven't quite been acculturated or educated out of by the time they get to high school,
exactly.
right?
And I remember that time period being the time period that really developed my interest. That 6th, 7th, 8th grade experience, and what I encountered and what I was encouraged to do are things that still stay with me
Yeah.
today. So,
Like as an artist, or just as a person, or both?
to support my interest in art. I think prior
Oh,
to
okay.
that, I didn't have a lot of people in my life who specifically said, "Hey, you know what? You're this is good. This is interesting. You should keep doing this." And I had some very influential mentors in middle
Oh,
school.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's really great.
Hmm.
You know what? I think I started selling my art in middle school.
nice.
Yep, I was 11, and so my art teacher was like one of the, I don't remember her name. That's so awful. But she was like one of the first people to buy a piece from me.
That's
And I
good.
was like selling portraits. It was actually a lot of fun. I don't even know why. I think I just did it just to see if it
That's
would
awesome.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting point. Have you been drawing since you were a child, and
since
how
I
did you?
can remember.
Yeah,
Ever
it
since
just
I can remember. Yep.
natural, and it just flowed into this career.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was one of those weirdos that kind of already knew what I was gonna
Yeah.
do, not really sure how I was gonna get there or what purpose it might serve me personally. But I knew that art was gonna fit somewhere in my life, even if I didn't make any money from it. But as it turns out, I kind of do, so that's nice.
That's awesome. That's
I'm
great.
like, oh, it worked.
Well, I want to be respectful of time. It's a little bit
Yeah.
after 2. So what I wanted to do was give anyone an opportunity to ask Erin one last question or make one last comment.
Yep, and I'll make like one last comment too after they do that if they want to. Hearing nothing. It sounded like a Senate meeting, didn't it?
That it did sound like a Senate meeting.
I think Molly or Suzanne had a question.
Oh, did you?
No, I'm just putting them on the spot.
Oh, that's funny. Hi.
There's
Hello?
Suzanne.
Hey, we'll just say hello. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Teacher from UD.
Oh, you are? One of you are the teacher. Are you both teachers?
Well, Brooke's a student teacher and Suzanne is her cooperating educator.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
So we were able, just the way the schedule worked out today, we were able to sit in. We didn't have a last period class, so we were really glad to be able to see you and
good. Thank
participate,
you.
listen to you.
Oh, well, thank you. I guess I should mention that I'll probably continue working on this and doing updates on this, but I often do like Facebook Live type of things where I'm just like drawing live. And I'm thinking that since my mom has the kids this weekend, I might do one of those. That's also for accountability. That's a way that I hold myself accountable is if I tell everyone like, hey, you guys, I'm going to do a live thing tomorrow, then I have to do it because everybody's going to talk about me if I don't. So that's like, yeah, if I do it live, it's gonna get done. Yeah, it's gonna get done. So I'll probably be doing that. If you guys want to follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I do a lot of live things on Facebook.
That's pretty cool.
Do follow her. She's amazing.
Oh, I love the hands.
Thank you.
Erin, it was really good to see you.
Thanks. It was good to see you too. And,
Erin, thank you so much for sharing both your experience and your history of your series. I think for us, it's also really powerful to see how an artist has moved over time. And you did that, helping us contextualize your work and the content and the way it changes as a result of who you are and the world around you. And that is such a powerful testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just trying to be a responsible artist. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I guess it kind of begins now, sort of.
For
I'm gonna
many.
get my kids from school now, I guess.
Nice.
Thank you
All
so
right, guys.
much. Thank you all for being with us.
Live.
Thank you. Thank you,
Wow.
Professor Bradshaw, for hosting, and thank you, Professor Erin Smith, for that great, talented work that you're exploring and blowing up the world with. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dean. Yeah. All right. Cool, you guys. Y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Oh, Erin, thank you so much. That was tremendous.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.